What's going on? We are back. This is Onsite with Blast, and I'm here with author, my cousin, someone who I interviewed before, and I didn't even know this story. Solita Smallwood Day is in the building, and last time you was with me, you actually told the story of your breast cancer survival.
Yes.
And that was amazing because at that time I didn't know that story, and then you came and you told that, and now you have another story. You wrote a book,
Yes.
and I didn't know this neither. But this story was 30 plus years in the making.
Yes.
Why was it 30 plus years in the making?
I was 19 when it happened. I wasn't ready for my boys to know my story. Now they're adults, and
Right.
I
It
felt
was time.
comfortable enough. Well, and it's going on so much in our community that it was time for somebody to speak up.
And we're talking about sexual assault. You were a sexual assault victim, for those who don't know or haven't caught on. That's what the book is for.
Yes.
And you wrote it because you think this would help other victims, right?
Yes.
Um, I read a little bit in the beginning where it says something about grief. And we always equate grief to death.
Mm-hmm.
But you said that you actually went through a grief. Could you explain that a little bit?
A lot of people attribute grief to death, but grief actually is going through a process of healing.
Mm-hmm.
So when something traumatic happens to a person, they also go through the grief process. I went through the grief process, all the stages of grief, anger, guilt, all the stages of grief I went through as well. And anybody that's been through a traumatic experience goes through grief. You hear a lot of times of survivor grief. Why did this person go and not me?
Right.
So that's part of the grief cycle as well.
And during this whole process, because you grieved and now you're over it, like you're doing better now, or do you think you're still going through this process? Or
No, I found my peace.
Yeah.
I found my peace.
Okay, so let's start back from the beginning. You were like an introvert as a kid, right?
Totally.
And you didn't bother nobody. You stayed out the way.
Yeah.
And what happened to you when you were about 19, right?
19, yeah.
So you were still a child, basically. And this happened by somebody who was close to you, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah. I was home summer break from college, my first year of college, and I have been dating a guy. He gave me a promise ring, so, back then that was a big thing. So he went to the military, and his family still lived, of course, near us. So I was still close with him. I was still close with his family, and his brother was the one that sexually assaulted me.
Mm-hmm.
And, I like to tell people, who would you feel safe with?
Right.
I felt safe with him. We were hanging out. His girlfriend was my best friend, so it was totally unexpected.
And he was giving you a ride somewhere?
He was taking me home.
And you had just left was he with his girlfriend when you left, or?
No, we had went to his girlfriend's house. She wasn't feeling well. She was actually pregnant, and she said she didn't want to go out. We were just, it was a summer day. We were just hanging out, and went past a couple friends' houses. It started getting late. I was like, I need to go home. He was driving me home, and about a block from my house, he stopped, and I was like, cool, let me hop out and head on up to the house, and all of a sudden the door's locked, and
He didn't say nothing when he stopped?
he didn't say nothing. No,
He just
nothing.
stopped.
He just stopped, like he parked, and you know how you kind of pull to the side so somebody can hop out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he did. I didn't think anything of it until, he hit me in the back of the head, and then my head hit the window.
So it started off violent. Like, he just hit you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And what were you thinking when, like, this is somebody you trust?
Yeah, I'm stunned. Like, what the heck is going on?
Right.
And I'm like, it's just, it was dazed. And then everything happened just like that then, He grabbed me, he's pulling me back. I guess I like blacked out because before I knew it, I was in the back seat of the car and he was on top of me. So I can't tell you this happened, then this happened, then this happened, because everything's jumbled.
Blur,
My
yeah.
head is swimming, and I'm like, this cannot be happening.
Right.
This can't be happening.
Because at the time, that's just stuff you hear about, or maybe even not even hear about.
You don't really hear about it. You hear about that's like movie stuff, TV stuff. You know what I mean? And even back then, you didn't see it that vividly on a movie screen.
And because this was the 80s, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, there wasn't a lot of stuff to even refer to on the movies.
It was all the family type stuff,
Right.
And that's how I grew up in this big family, extended family. We're involved in boys clubs and, the CA. Everybody's friends, everybody's family. York is small anyway.
Right.
So, this was extended family, people that you feel safe with. And this was just a surprise.
Wow.
It was just a surprise. So.
And at some point in the car, you started fighting back.
Oh, I started fighting back immediately.
So this is like once you like, oh wait, like
this is not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's my, this is not going to happen. I don't know who you think you are, but this is not going to happen.
Right.
And so, I fought back, but for somebody who's trying to dominate a situation, that amps them up because that's what they want. That gives them, that adrenaline rush because this is the fight. This is what they want. Because they know they can overpower you. So let's just do this then. It's almost like that dance. Let's just do this then. So.
And how'd you get out?
I felt like it was, you go into that fight or flight mode, okay?
Right.
So I felt like I didn't really have any choice because I felt like I know you. My family knows you.
Right.
You're either going to kill me or I'm going to kill you. That's just how I felt. So I'm reaching around on, I guess it was the floor at that point, and whatever I could grab, I grabbed and I swung. And then he kind of slumped over and I was like, trying to jump out the window. I fell out the car. My knees is all bloody and pants down around my ankles. I'm like, I got to go. I don't know if he's up and chasing me. I don't know.
Nighttime?
It was nighttime. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So where'd you run to? Home?
Home. And I'm bamming on the door, like, open up, because I'm an introvert. My mom and dad will always say, trying to get me out around friends, trying to get my sister back home. But I'm comfortable in a corner reading a book.
Right.
I was the fly on the wall nobody, really saw. So I'm bamming on the door because I don't know where my keys are. I'm like in a panic. He's right behind me. You know what I mean? Somebody's going to get up. My mom, my dad, the neighbors. I thought that.
Yeah.
I thought that. So they open up the door. I fall into it and I'm like crying and saying, he raped me. And immediately my dad is like, where's he at? And I sit around the corner. So my dad dashes out the house and then he came back and he's like, I don't see him. And I was like, Dad, he's down there. He was in that car. And my dad ran up the stairs and back down the stairs and then went back outside. At some point, I had called the cops because I felt like, what is happening? It was almost like I'm not me. It's what is happening.
It's an out-of-body experience.
So I called the police, and I remember saying, my dad went looking for him. So I don't know if the police were in the area or if they were just responding that fast, because right now if you call the police, you don't know when they're gonna show up.
Right.
So, but apparently my dad hit the car the same time the police were pulling up. And I'm glad that it happened that way, because I didn't want my dad behind bars.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's what was going to happen.
For sure.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
Yep.
So the police got there first. They took him to jail and they charged him.
They charged him. Yeah. He went to jail and I went to the hospital.
They took you for tests and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the evidence was there.
Oh, definitely.
So it was never a thing of like he was going to get off or anything.
He tried. I mean, of course, anybody in that situation
is going to try to get.
Yeah, you know, it's consensual. That's my girlfriend. You know, all this, that, and the other.
What did the girlfriend say?
Well, what could she say? Like those were two phone calls that I dreaded getting. Her phone call and my boyfriend's phone call, because I knew they were coming. When she called, it was like, what happened? Well, you knew what happened. You know what happened. That's why you calling me.
Right.
You know what happened. So she said something like, but what really happened? And that was it.
Wow.
And then when my boyfriend actually called, it wasn't, are you okay? You know, it wasn't any of that. It was like, how could you let this happen? You know, that kind of tone. And again, I hung up and it was just a done deal.
You ain't talk to either one of them again?
Mm-mm.
So let's circle back to the black folks we like to sweep stuff under the rug.
Yeah, we do, because they're family, and I don't know what my mom and dad said, but it was almost like we should be able to handle this.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And that's not how you felt.
Mm-mm.
And where were your parents? I know they was tore up behind that. They had to be.
You get tunnel vision.
Yeah.
I didn't see my brother. I didn't see my sister. I didn't see my parents.
You felt like you was alone.
I didn't see anybody. And then, you know, backtracking, not just black folks, minority folks, everything goes underneath the rug.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody has that uncle that everybody knows is the molester.
And they call him crazy or stay
yeah,
away from him.
they give him that terminology, like, you know, he just ain't right. Stay away from him. But don't nobody say he's a child molester.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so certain parents will keep the kids away and be like, you can't go near Uncle Joe or...
Why do you think that is? Why? Because that's so true. That even Latino, because me and my wife was talking about that too. I know black people do it. So it's like, why do you think we just overlooked that? And they still be at like the reunions and stuff.
It's almost like if I'm here, it's not gonna happen. You know what I mean? So we know we're not sending them to Uncle Joe's house. So when Uncle Joe shows up at the family reunion, I'm here. Uncle Joe ain't gonna try something when I'm here. But people don't realize you're not everywhere.
Yeah.
You really are not. You can't see everything that's going on. And then they don't see the grooming that goes on
and what
for some
about
people.
all the other kids that could be victims from this person? Like, if you know, yeah, we gotta do better.
Yeah.
We gotta do
yeah.
better. Wow. So they were trying to pressure you to not say nothing, the other family, right?
They wanted to handle it themselves. Like, let's handle this together.
Wow.
I don't know what in the world
How
made
can
them.
you make this right? Please.
Exactly.
Explain that
Exactly.
to me.
But in my mind, I'm thinking, y'all don't really believe this happened. You don't really believe this happened.
Right.
And so at that point, really, it's like, F you.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to do what I need to do because this ain't right.
Right.
The other thing that kept me pushing forward was the phone calls I started to get. And my phone number ain't out there like that. You know, we don't have cell phones. We ain't texting,
Right.
that sort of thing. You got to know my phone number to the house to call me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting calls or I'm getting notes in my mailbox that say, thank you for speaking up. He did that to me too.
Oh wow. So he had multiple. This was his thing. So you probably saved a bunch of people.
A bunch of people. And then there's people that had a similar story, but might not have been him. They got a voice. Because I was going to the courts. We was going to see this through.
Was this like in the paper and everything?
I don't know if it was in the paper.
Because it sounds like it would be a big story. Like today, it sounds.
Today it would be a big story,
Yeah.
but back then, not so much because everybody handles stuff on their own.
Yeah.
You know, you didn't see this kind of it. And now we got social media, so when something happens, it's blasted because the newspaper articles start running.
Right.
You know, but it was hush hush. I don't even think you saw it because we had something like Crime Watchers or something like that. I don't even know. Back then, there was a true sense of innocent until proven guilty.
Mm-hmm.
True sense, especially for rapists.
And women weren't even. They weren't even half as close to being as advanced as they are today, and there's still so much
Yep.
further to go. But back then, it was like
You didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
It was truly a male-dominated society at that point in time. So his voice was going to ring louder than mine anyway.
Yeah, and he had people that actually had to that came and tried to play character witness, right? Like to speak on behalf of this man after they know what he did.
The thing is, all these people were saying, oh, this really didn't happen. She's lying. He got a girlfriend. You know, why would he have to do this? That sort of thing. None of those people showed up in court. None of them. And the first court hearing, like you go through like a preliminary hearing where they have to determine if there's enough evidence. Nobody was there. Not even his parents.
So nobody was there to support this man, but they were still.
I call them the naysayers.
So they knew he did it.
Hmm.
They were trying to get you to drop it. Wow.
And it just feels like they knew because this had happened before, and they probably got all these other people
Yeah.
to drop it.
They probably did.
Yeah.
Wow. And at some point you had to take the stand.
Hmm.
And you were in college at the time?
Hmm. I had to come home to take this stand.
And did you feel any sense of support by that time? Like,
From the community?
yeah.
No.
So we spoke, and you said that you took the stand, you testified, and you got on the bus to go back to school that day.
Yeah.
Where was your head at? Your head had to be nowhere near school. Like,
Listen, our folks don't understand that.
mm-hmm.
They understand, let's keep busy so our mind don't think about it.
Yeah.
And that was my mindset. Let's keep busy so you don't think about it. But then I found out from my roommate that I was saying, stop, no, don't do this, in his name. And so she came in
Sleep?
in my sleep.
Wow.
And she came in and she was like, who is this person? You keep saying this, that, and the other. And I was like, hold on, you don't get that right to speak that name to me.
Yeah.
I don't know who you are to think that you can say this to me. And, you know, from then I was like, I shut down. Because it was like, you're interrupting my peace. Because I went back to college thinking if I change the scenery, I can change, you know, my mindset. I can get away from this, out of sight, out of mind.
And that's how we're taught. But
Yeah.
Staying busy is not a healthy response to trauma.
No,
Period.
it's not.
No matter what the trauma is. And I've done that. I think I'm still kind of doing that. But like, busy that's terrible. Like at some point you got to deal with it.
You do.
And you got to unpack it, or you'll carry it with you. And you carried it with you for a long time.
And
right?
it gets heavy. It gets heavy. Especially when you have people coming to you saying, he did this to me, he did this to me, or my boyfriend did this to me. And then, it's like a backpack you're carrying, and they keep telling you stuff. You put more stuff in this backpack, and this backpack is weighing you down.
Right.
And you don't realize it's weighing you down until you hear that, oh, you're having nightmares. You're calling out in your sleep. This is going on. That's your subconscious that's not sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
It's not forgetting what happened to you. So you need to deal with it.
Yeah, you have to. You have to unpack it. I tell people, I'm a big advocate of therapy. I tell people all the time, get that, and especially if you went through anything traumatic like you did. You've been through many traumatic things.
I have.
You need to unpack that. You can't just carry all of that stuff with you. And there's people with less than that I still think should talk to somebody. Like, get it out.
It can't hurt. It can't hurt.
Yeah.
But we're so used to what goes in my house stays in my house.
Mm-hmm.
You don't take that out.
Yeah.
You don't take that out.
And that's unhealthy. And so, especially when it's stuff like this, when other people are getting hurt.
Yeah.
Because even in our houses, if we see our parents fighting, and you can't say that, and that's traumatic for a kid. If you see and it's still like we don't, you better not say nothing outside of my house.
And then with the next generation, when that goes on, it's okay because mom and dad was okay, grandma and granddad was okay.
Just passing trauma down from generation to generation.
Yeah.
So, how long was this trial? Because you testified. Was there a bunch of Just it was a quick trial.
When you have a preliminary hearing, you go in. Like I went in, I testified, and the district magistrate said there's enough evidence to go to court. So I got on a bus and went back. Then you got to wait for the court hearing.
Right. And he was in jail that whole time, or was he out on bail?
At some point, he was actually out on bail.
Okay.
And my parents lived on one street, and he lived a block around the corner. His family lived a block around the corner.
That would have been so hard for.
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
So he's outside just roaming around in the neighborhood where your parents live, and you're at school. Where was you at school at?
Bloomsburg. I was like
Oh,
two
so
and
you
a half
was
hours
out.
away.
Okay. So at least you weren't having to see this man.
Right.
So you come back, you go to trial, and you have to testify again at the real trial?
At the real trial. By that time, I was home.
Okay.
By that time, I was home and studying at York College.
Okay.
So, because it's when you start going through therapy, like I was going each week.
Yeah.
I can't come home, unpack that, go back.
It's a lot.
So it is a lot. It is a lot.
So,
But there's a lot of people that don't know about services that exist like that because we have what's called a victim assistance center. And that's for any victim, any crime.
is it free?
It's free.
People need to definitely look that up. Was it called the Victim Assistance Center? Yes, definitely look that up because I know there's a whole lot of people dealing with stuff that they should probably get help for. So this man gets found guilty, and he winds up going away for a while.
7 to 13.
And he did
Most of it.
Most of that. And the whole time he's in jail, you're still not right because you still are unpacking.
I'm thinking after the trial and they found him guilty, he went away, life is going to be great. Life will be great. You know what I mean? And
did it feel like any weight was lifted when he got locked up, or it was just like it didn't feel like you thought it would?
It felt, for me, in the family circle, I felt like I told y'all so.
Yeah.
Because I still felt like there was question. At one point in time, I remember my parents said, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, what's that supposed to mean? Am I sure? I know what happened. So, when we came to the trial, his attorney wanted to plead him out. And they're like, if he pleads out, he'll get like 3 to 7, something like that. And I'm like, everybody's like, you won't have to testify. Nobody will know what happened. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't want that. Because at that point, I was like, I don't care if the jury says not guilty or not. I didn't care. I just wanted people to know my side of the story.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, more important to me than him being in jail. Because...
Was he there when you testified? You got to look at him while you was testifying?
Yeah, because they asked you, is the person that did this here in the courtroom? Yep. Right there. Right there. He got a blue shirt on, and he got a smirk on his face. Like, that's how confident I was when I sat on that stand.
He had a smirk on his face?
He had a smirk on his face.
Did he have any family in there during the trial?
No.
Still then?
No.
So the whole process, nobody supported him?
No supporters. No supporters. Now, when we went to the big trial, they sequestered everybody anyway. So even my mom and dad weren't in the courtroom. Because they didn't want anybody's testimony tainted. Right. So my mom and dad didn't know what I testified to at that hearing. And I don't know what my mom and dad testified to at that hearing. Because I wasn't in there and they weren't in there. But and I didn't even hire an attorney. It was the DA. They told us that he had several friends that we apparently had saw that day that said, oh yeah, they were together all day. That's his girlfriend. But none of their stories matched up. Because they wouldn't have had a chance to get with him to get a story. And his story was completely different.
So they knew they was lying.
Mm-hmm.
So he does most of that time, and then he finally gets out. And you're still dealing with it. And you thought you was almost healed until you actually saw him one day.
I was driving down the street, because again, York is small. And he actually was standing on his parents' porch. I wasn't ready for that. So I felt.
You didn't know he was home?
I didn't know. I got a notice that he was being released. But when you get that notice, you don't know if it's the next week, the next month. You don't know. They just say that, his probation, or he's going to be released with probation or something to that effect. So I saw him and my heart started beating out my chest, and I was like, this is ridiculous. So I did a U-turn. Before I know it, I hopped out the car, and I'm like...
By yourself?
By myself. My kids was in the car.
Yeah?
I was like, I'll be right back. I was like, come here. He was like, do you think that's a good idea? And he walked down the steps, and I was just like, I need to tell you that I forgive you. And he was like, man, but it didn't even have to be like that. And I was like, hold up. This ain't about you. It's about what you did to me.
Still
and in order for me to go on, you need to know I forgive you. He's not controlling nothing. Not at all. But that was still his mindset.
It's crazy. He had no accountability for what he did. The innocence he took, and not only that, he did it violently.
Yeah.
And he felt like he shouldn't have been punished for it.
Right.
That's
because
crazy.
He had never been punished for it.
Yeah, he was.
Why should he?
And again, how were women treated back then? He probably thought that it was okay because he was getting away with it. Why would you be any different?
Yeah.
But what you did was first off, what you did by getting out that car by yourself was super brave too. But what you did by actually being the one who blew the whistle, because that needed to happen. He needed to be off the streets. Wow. So how's the process afterwards? Do you see any of his other victims, or has anyone else reached out to you? Or any victims, period.
When the book hit, yeah. My inbox was crazy. And I released it March 28th, and April 1st started Sexual Assault Awareness Month. That's why I did it when I did it. I wrote this book 1,000 times in my mind. And I'm like, if I don't do it now, when's it going to get done?
Right.
So I put that book out there. I didn't know what to expect. And my inbox started popping. Amazon was tracking like the Amazon sales. And I was like, are you kidding me? And people I didn't know was buying the book. But then there were people who could read it electronically first. And they were saying, thank you for being that voice. This happened to me. This happened to somebody I know. Thank you for being that voice. You're so brave. Courage. It took courage for you to say what you said in your book. And I'm like, I'm no longer that introvert,
Yeah.
and I put in the book how my life is like the butterfly. I was in that cocoon, struggling to get out. And for a butterfly, if somebody cuts that cocoon open for them and they don't struggle to get out, they're crippled.
Right.
No, I struggled to get out through my cocoon, and I emerged brilliant, bright,
Right.
soaring free. And that's how my spirit was when I said to him, I forgive you.
And that was like the final thing for you, that you was like, I can close this chapter.
Yep.
That's dope. What's one thing or a couple things that you would say to a woman right now who is scared to come out and just doesn't want to say anything because of she's getting pressured or whatever?
Everybody has their own journey. My journey towards peace was a long journey. It was a long journey. I started when, like I said, I was 19, and my children were born when I was 26, 28. So I didn't say anything until that point. And
Right.
once that trial was over, nobody talked about it anymore. So women who have been sexually assaulted are out there. They're silenced. I'm working to be their voice. They don't have to tell the world. I told the world my story.
Right.
That doesn't mean everybody has to tell the world their story. But they're not alone. They're not alone. There are many women like us who gain strength in linking up,
Right.
who gain strength in going to therapy, who gain strength in knowing they're not alone. My story is their story. So telling my story, I'm telling their story as well.
Well, that's all that needs to be said. Where can they get your book?
It's sold on Amazon. They can Google Blue, A Journey Towards Peace. I have a website, www.blueajourney.com. So they can get it there. Call me up, hit me up on Facebook, whatever. I've delivered a lot of books around town.
Go to Amazon and get Blue, A Journey Towards Peace. I thank you so much for doing this, cuz. Solita Smallwood Day. This is Onsite with Blanche. We'll see y'all next week.